In the year 2150, Earth had become a quiet place. People lived simple lives, unaware that the universe held many secrets. But one group of ordinary individuals would soon uncover a mystery that had been hidden for centuries. They were about to learn that humanity's past was far more extraordinary than anyone could imagine. It all started with Leo. A young historian working at a small museum in New York City, he had always been fascinated by ancient cultures. One evening, as Leo was cataloging old artifacts in the museum's basement, he found something unusual, a stone tablet buried beneath a pile of forgotten relics. The tablet had strange symbols carved into it, symbols he had never seen before. Intrigued, Leo carefully examined it, feeling an odd pull as he traced the shapes with his fingers. Something about the tablet felt alive. The next morning, Leo couldn't stop thinking about the tablet. He decided to investigate further, even though he had no idea where to begin. The symbols were unlike any language he had ever studied, and the feeling of familiarity haunted him. He spent hours researching, scouring old books, and using every online resource he could find. Then, he discovered something strange, a hidden message buried deep in the history of humankind. The symbols on the tablet were part of a larger puzzle, one that had been waiting to be solved. They were linked to a forgotten civilization known only as the Curators. The Curators had once shaped the very fabric of humanity's future, guiding people to their destiny. But somehow their story had been erased from history, leaving behind only cryptic hints and scattered clues. Leo's search led him to a quiet village on the outskirts of the city. There, he met Maya, a young woman with an eerie connection to the Curators. Maya had always felt out of place, as if she was meant for something more. When she touched the tablet Leo had found, a strange sensation rushed through her. Images and memories flashed before her eyes, memories that didn't belong to her. It was as though she had lived another life, one that stretched back centuries. Together, Leo and Maya followed the trail of clues, each one leading them closer to the truth. They traveled across the globe from ancient ruins to forgotten temples, and everywhere they went, the symbols appeared. But they weren't alone. Someone or something was following them. Shadows moved in the background, and they felt eyes on them at all times. It wasn't just curiosity driving their pursuers. Whoever was after them wanted the knowledge they were uncovering, and they would stop at nothing to get it. The puzzle pieces slowly fell into place. Leo and Maya realized the shocking truth: humanity's rise to power had never been random. The Curators, an ancient race, had seeded Earth with their own kind, guiding the human race from the shadows. They had hidden knowledge, technologies, and abilities within the human genome, waiting for the right time to be awakened. The humans of Earth had no idea, but they were destined for greatness and destruction, depending on how they used the power locked inside them. One night, as Leo and Maya sat in a dimly lit cafe, piecing together their findings, they were confronted by an unexpected visitor, a man in a black suit, who introduced himself as Jace. He claimed to have come from a group that had been protecting humanity from the truth. The Curator's legacy, Jace warned, could be both a blessing and a curse. If the wrong hands gained access to the knowledge hidden within humanity, it could lead to chaos. Governments and powerful organizations had been hunting the Curator's secrets for centuries, and now Leo and Maya had unknowingly unlocked the final piece of the puzzle. Jace offered them a choice: hand over the tablet and everything they had discovered, or risk unleashing something far worse than they could imagine. Leo's mind raced. He didn't know who to trust. Was Jace telling the truth, or was he just another person looking to control the legacy of the Curators? The tension between them was palpable. Maya could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on them. She had seen the power of the Curators in her visions, and part of her knew that humanity was ready to embrace its true potential. But another part of her feared what might happen if that power fell into the wrong hands. Suddenly, the room grew cold. The lights flickered, and an eerie silence fell over the cafe. Then, the door swung open, and a group of armed men in dark uniforms entered. They were too late, Leo realized. The knowledge was already awakening within them. Maya had begun to understand the symbols, and her connection to the Curators had grown stronger. The tablet glowed brightly in her hands, and Leo knew they had no choice but to run. As they fled into the night, Leo and Maya realized one thing: they had uncovered a truth that could change the future of humanity. But it came with a price. The past had caught up with them, and now they were the only ones who could unlock the true power of the curators. But would they be able to control it, or would they become pawns in a game far older and more dangerous than they could ever imagine? The chase had just begun. Noah Turner had always been fascinated by ancient civilizations. As a young archaeologist, he spent most of his days studying artifacts and lost histories. But nothing prepared him for the discovery that would change his life forever. It all started one quiet afternoon while Noah was working in an old library, sorting through ancient manuscripts. His fingers brushed against a dusty leather-bound book, one that seemed oddly out of place. The cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. As he opened it, something caught his eye: an image of a symbol that seemed almost alive. It was a simple shape, but it radiated an eerie energy that made Noah feel uneasy. Curious, he traced the symbol with his finger, and to his shock, the pages of the book shifted. The air around him grew heavy, and a strange sensation ran through his body. He felt a sudden rush of knowledge, fragments of history, secrets of the universe, and a strange sense of connection to something older than humanity itself. The mark had been activated. Noah pulled his hand away, heart racing. He was no longer alone. In the corner of the library, a shadow moved. A man stepped forward, his dark eyes piercing into Noah's soul. "You found it," the stranger said, his voice low and filled with a sense of urgency. Noah took a step back, confused. "Found what? What's happening?" The man's eyes softened, but his expression was still serious. "The curator's mark," he explained. "You've been chosen." Noah was stunned. "The curators? I've never heard of them." The stranger nodded. The curators were an ancient civilization, far older than any known history. They guided humanity's evolution, shaping its destiny in secret. But their work wasn't finished. You are now a part of it. Noah's mind raced. What does that mean? Why me? The mark on the book chose you, the man said. It means you have the potential to unlock powers hidden within you. The curators embedded knowledge and abilities in humanity, but it takes a special person to awaken them. Before Noah could ask more questions, the man turned and headed for the door. You'll learn more soon. But be careful. There are others who will stop at nothing to take that mark from you. They've been hunting the curator's legacy for centuries. With that, the man vanished, leaving Noah standing in the dimly lit library, more confused than ever. The days that followed were filled with strange dreams and visions. Noah saw images of vast, forgotten cities, ancient technologies, and people whose faces seemed oddly familiar. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was calling to him, something that was linked to the symbol he had uncovered. But what was it? He knew one thing for sure: he had to find answers. The mark was a key, but it wasn't clear what it would unlock. Could it be the key to untold power, or was it a curse? Noah's search led him to an underground network of scholars and archaeologists who'd been studying the curators for years. These people had been trying to uncover the truth, but they were always one step behind the forces that sought to control the curator's legacy. As Noah dug deeper, he began to realize that there was much more at stake than he had ever imagined. One evening, as he was reviewing some old maps in a secret underground chamber, a group of men in dark suits burst through the door. They were silent but deadly, and their eyes locked onto Noah immediately. The leader stepped forward, a cold smile on his face. "Hand over the mark," he said simply. Noah stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea who these men were, but he knew they were dangerous. "What do you want with it?" he demanded. The man's smile widened. "We've been following the curator's trail for a long time. You have something we need. The mark will lead us to the ultimate power." Noah's mind raced. The mark was more than just a symbol. It was a map, a guide to something ancient and powerful. If these men got their hands on it, everything he had discovered would be lost. But he wasn't going to give it up without a fight. In a blur of movement, Noah darted for the door. The men closed behind. He didn't know where he was going, but he had to keep moving. The symbol burned on his skin, a constant reminder of the secret that was now a part of him. Every step he took seemed to lead him deeper into the unknown. As Noah ran through the dark streets of the city, the shadows seemed to close in on him. He felt as if he were being watched, as though the entire world was conspiring against him. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from the stranger, the one who had warned him about the mark. They're close. Trust no one. Find the Temple of the Curators. It's your only hope. Noah's breath caught in his throat. The Temple of the Curators? He had never heard of it. But if there was a chance to unlock the secrets behind the mark, this was his only lead. As he turned a corner, the men caught up to him. They moved swiftly, trapping him between the walls of two buildings. You can't run forever, the leader said, his voice cold and final. Noah knew he had to make a choice. Give up the mark, or fight to protect it and discover the truth that had been hidden for so long. The decision was clear. The curators had chosen him, and he wasn't going to let their legacy fall into the wrong hands. With a deep breath, Noah prepared for what came next. The mark was his, and it would lead him to the answers he had been seeking no matter the cost. Maya Thompson had always felt like she didn't belong. Growing up on a small, quiet planet, she spent her days reading about the stars, dreaming of the places she would never see. She never imagined that one day she would be chosen to uncover secrets that had been hidden for millennia. It all started when Maya received an unexpected message, an encrypted transmission sent from an unknown source. It was short, mysterious, and terrifying. The message simply read, "You are the last. They are coming. Find the map." Maya didn't understand. Who was the last? Who was coming? And what map? Despite her confusion, something deep inside her stirred. There was no turning back now. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this message was meant for her. The next morning, she packed her things and left for the one place she had never visited, the ancient ruins located on the edge of her planet. These ruins had been unexplored for centuries, said to be the remains of a forgotten civilization. When she arrived at the ruins, Maya found something she wasn't prepared for. The place was alive. Not in the way plants or animals were, but in a strange, unnatural way. The ruins pulsed with energy, and as she stepped closer to the largest structure, she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. The air was thick, charged with something ancient and powerful. Inside, a holographic map materialized before her, projected onto the stone wall. The map was vast, stretching across galaxies, showing planets, stars, and unknown territories. Maya reached out and touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, the map flickered and changed, revealing hidden paths and symbols she couldn't recognize. But one symbol caught her eye, a crescent moon surrounded by strange markings. It was the same symbol that had appeared in her dreams for weeks, a symbol she now understood was calling to her. Before she could study it further, a loud crash echoed from behind her. Maya spun around to see a group of men in black armor, their faces hidden behind helmets. They moved quickly, surrounding her. The leader stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "You've found it, haven't you?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. "The map. Hand it over." Maya's heart raced. She had no idea who these people were or what they wanted, but one thing was clear: they were dangerous. "What is this map? Who are you?" The leader didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hand, and a soldier stepped forward to grab Maya. But she was faster. She darted to the side, knocking over a stone pillar, buying herself just enough time to escape. The soldiers fired, but she ducked behind the ruins, heart pounding in her chest. Maya didn't know where she was running, only that she couldn't let them take the map. The map was everything. It held the key to something far greater than she could understand. As she sprinted through the ruins, she remembered the strange message: "You are the last. They're coming." Who was the last? Why was she being hunted? The answers felt just out of reach, but she couldn't stop now. There was no going back. After what felt like hours, Maya found herself standing before a massive door carved into the side of the ruins. The door was ancient, with no obvious way to open it. But as she approached, the map in her hands began to glow faintly. She hesitated, then placed her hand on the door. It reacted instantly, opening with a heavy groan. Inside, the chamber was empty, except for a stone pedestal in the center. On the pedestal rested an old book, its cover worn and faded. Maya's fingers trembled as she picked it up, feeling the weight of it in her hands. The book was strangely warm, as if it had been waiting for her. As she opened it, she saw pages filled with the same strange symbols that had appeared on the map. And at the end of the book, there was a passage that spoke of an ancient civilization, the Curators. They had once guided humanity through the stars, protecting them from a terrible enemy. But the Curators had disappeared, leaving behind only their knowledge and the map to guide the next generation. Maya realized with a shock that the map wasn't just a map. It was a guide, one that would lead humanity to the stars if they could survive the coming storm. The sound of footsteps broke her concentration. The soldiers had found her again. Maya ran, but now she understood what she had to do. She couldn't let the map fall into their hands. She had to find the others, those who were meant to follow the path the Curators had left behind. She ran toward the exit, but before she could reach it, the leader appeared in front of her, blocking her way. "You can't escape," he said. "The Curator's legacy belongs to us." Maya stared at him, her heart pounding. "The Curators are gone," she said, her voice steady. "But their guide is here, and it's not for you." Without another word, she sprinted past him, using the map to find a hidden exit. The soldiers fired again, but Maya was too fast. She was the last guide, the one chosen to carry the Curator's legacy. And no one would stop her from fulfilling her destiny. As she disappeared into the night, she knew one thing for certain: the journey had only just begun. The path the Curators had laid out for humanity was open, and it was up to her to lead them into the unknown. Ethan Graves had never believed in legends. Growing up in a small town, he'd had heard many tales of hidden treasures, lost civilizations, and paths that led to places no one could imagine. He listened to them as a child, dismissing them as nothing more than stories. But that was before he found the map. It was a rainy evening when Ethan discovered the old leather-bound book in the attic of his grandfather's house. His grandfather, a man known for his strange collection of artifacts, had passed away months earlier. Ethan hadn't visited the house since the funeral, but something had called him back that day. As he dusted off the book, an ancient, worn map fell out from between the pages. The map was unlike any he had seen before. It showed a forest, a river, and a mountain locations Ethan recognized from his childhood, but there was something strange about it. The map was drawn in a way that suggested the forest had moved, the river had shifted, and the mountain was no longer in the place he remembered. His curiosity took over. Ethan studied the map all night, unable to shake the feeling that it was leading to something important, something that had been forgotten for centuries. The more he looked at it, the more he felt a strange pull, as if the map was calling him. The next day, he set off to follow it. The forest was just as the map described, dense and dark, with towering trees that seemed to stretch into the sky. Ethan walked for hours, the path winding through thick undergrowth and tangled roots. He hadn't expected the journey to be easy, but something about the quietness of the woods made him feel uneasy. The deeper he went, the more he felt like he was being watched. It wasn't until dusk that he found a hidden path that wasn't marked on the map, but seemed to appear out of nowhere. The trees parted, revealing a narrow, stone-lined trail that seemed to lead straight into the heart of the forest. The air grew colder as he stepped onto the path, and a chill ran down his spine. Something didn't feel right. Ethan hesitated but pressed on, determined to find out what lay at the end of the forgotten path. He had to know if this was just another legend or if something more was waiting for him. As he followed the trail, the sounds of the forest seemed to disappear. There was no wind, no birds, no rustling leaves, just an eerie silence that made Ethan's every step feel heavier. He could feel his pulse quicken as the path twisted and turned, leading him deeper into the woods. The further he went, the more the forest seemed to close in on him, the trees growing tighter together as if to trap him. And then he saw at the end of the path stood a massive stone structure covered in ivy and moss. It looked ancient, far older than any building he had ever seen. The stone walls were carved with strange symbols, some of which Ethan recognized from his grandfather's old books. He took a cautious step forward, his heart racing. This was no ordinary ruin, it was something else. Something far older than any civilization he knew. As he approached the entrance, the air grew thick, as if the very atmosphere was charged with energy. The door to the structure was wide open, as if inviting him inside. But something held him back. A feeling of dread washed over him, warning him that he should turn back. But Ethan wasn't one to walk away from a mystery. He stepped inside. The interior was dark, with only the faintest glow coming from cracks in the stone. It was cold, and the air smelled musty, as though no one had been there for centuries. Ethan's flashlight flickered as he moved deeper into the structure, shining light on the walls covered in more symbols that seemed to change as he looked at them, shifting and rearranging themselves. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it lay a strange glowing object. It looked like a crystal, but it pulsed with an inner light that seemed almost alive. Ethan approached it slowly, his breath catching in his throat. This was what the map had been leading to. The object on the pedestal was the key, but to what? As his fingers brushed against the crystal, the ground beneath him rumbled. The walls shook, and a deep voice echoed through the chamber. "You have found the forgotten path, but you are not alone." Ethan froze, panic rising in his chest. He wasn't alone? What did that mean? Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him, heavy, deliberate steps. He turned around, but there was no one there. The air around him grew colder, and the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, moving on their own. A figure appeared in the doorway, tall, cloaked in shadow, with eyes glowing faintly red. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. The figure stepped closer, its presence oppressive, filling the room with an energy that made Ethan's skin crawl. "You should not have come," the figure said, its voice low and hollow. "The path was meant to be forgotten. The crystal must not be disturbed." Ethan backed away, but the figure advanced. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "I am the Guardian," the figure replied, "the last protector of the path. You are not the first to seek it, but you will be the last to find it." With a surge of fear, Ethan turned and bolted for the door. The Guardian's voice followed him, whispering in his ear, warning him to stop. But he couldn't stop now. He had to get out. He ran through the dark forest, the trees seeming to move and shift as though they were alive, guiding him back toward the place he had started. And as he burst out into the clearing, he realized one terrifying truth: the forgotten path was not meant to be found. And now that he had discovered it, the path would follow him. Always Selena Williams had always been drawn to the stars. As a child, she would lie on the grass at night, staring up at the endless sky, imagining that the twinkling lights were guiding her to something greater. But what that greater thing was, she had never known. That was until she received the letter. The letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. It was plain, with no return address, and simply read, "You are one of the chosen. Follow the stars, and you will find your path." At first, Lena thought it was some kind of joke. But the words felt different, as if they were meant for her and her alone. She had always felt something was missing in her life, a purpose that she couldn't quite grasp. And now, with these words, the feeling had returned stronger than ever. Something was calling her, and she couldn't ignore it. That night, Lena went to the highest hill in her town. The stars were brighter than she had ever seen, filling the sky with a soft, pulsing light. As she looked up, she felt the unmistakable pull, like the stars were speaking to her, guiding her to something. But what? Her gaze fell on one particular star. It wasn't the brightest, but it shimmered in a way that caught her attention. It seemed to flicker, almost as if it was trying to tell her something. Without thinking, Lena reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook and pencil. She quickly sketched the pattern of stars around it. The pattern was unlike any constellation she had ever seen before. Lena's heart raced. She felt certain that the pattern was important, that it was the key to something she needed to understand. The map of stars seemed to tell a story, a path that led somewhere unknown. But where? The next day, she set off to follow the pattern. Lena's journey took her through forests, over hills, and across rivers. Each night, she would stop and look up at the sky, using the stars to guide her way. The further she went, the more the feeling of being watched grew. It wasn't that someone was following her, but the air around her seemed charged with an unseen presence, like the very earth was alive and aware of her journey. One evening, as she walked through a dense forest, Lena noticed something strange. In the distance, a faint glow pierced through the trees. She couldn't tell what it was, but the glow seemed to call her, just like the stars had done. She followed it, her footsteps quickening. When she reached the source of the light, she found herself standing before a hidden stone doorway, glowing faintly with the same light she had seen from a distance. The door was covered in ancient carvings, symbols she couldn't understand but felt she recognized. It was as if they were calling her to step forward. Lena hesitated but then pushed the door open. As it creaked, the glow intensified, flooding the area with a soft, otherworldly light. Inside, the air was thick with mystery. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, and at the center of the room was a pedestal. On it lay a crystal, pulsing with the same light that had guided Lena here. She reached out and picked it up. As her fingers touched the crystal, a surge of energy shot through her, and the room seemed to spin. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed in her mind. "You have found the first of the guiding stars. You are the one to carry the light forward." The voice faded, but the crystal in her hand continued to glow, its warmth filling her. The path was becoming clearer, but so was the danger. Lena didn't have much time to process what had just happened before the ground beneath her shook. The stone doorway slammed shut, trapping her inside. Panic set in. The path had led her here, but now it seemed as though she might not make it out. Then, just as quickly as the shaking had started, it stopped. The room fell silent. Lena's breathing was the only sound she could hear as she tried to make sense of it all. The crystal pulsed again, this time brighter than ever. She knew she had to leave, but there was something else she had to do. The crystal had shown her a glimpse of a map that pointed to other places, other stars. The path she had started was only the beginning, and she was being called to find more. But who else was searching for the guiding stars? Before Lena could take another step, she heard a noise behind her. Slowly, she turned around. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was a man dressed in dark clothing, his face hidden by a hood. "I knew you would come," the man said, his voice low and calm. "But you don't understand. The stars aren't meant for you." Lena stepped back, gripping the crystal tightly. "Who are you?" she demanded. The man's smile was cold. "I'm the one who was chosen before you. The stars were meant to guide me, not you. And now, I must take what is mine." He lunged forward, but Lena wasn't ready to give up the crystal. She raised it in defense, and as she did, the crystal flashed with a blinding light. The man stumbled back, shielding his eyes. This was her moment. She ran. Lena didn't stop until she was outside, back in the open air. The stars were still visible, guiding her, but now she understood something she hadn't before. The stars weren't just points of light, they were a warning. There were others like the man, and they would stop at nothing to control the light she carried. Her journey had only just begun.